Captain Jake Morrison stared out at the endless void of space through the cracked viewport of his mining ship. The new frontier was old and battered, held together by spare parts and human stubbornness, but she still flew. That was more than many could say after 50 years of exile in the galaxy's forgotten corners. The alarm chimed softly on the bridge. Jake turned to see his navigator, Danny Walsh, pointing at the sensor display. 3 blips appeared on the screen, moving fast toward their position. Jake's jaw tightened. Those weren't human ships. Federation patrol, Danny said quietly. Zephyrian design by the looks of it? Jake nodded and pressed the come button. All hands, this is the captain. We've got company coming. Everyone to stations. And remember, we're just humble miners doing honest work. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this dance many times before. Hide the good equipment, power down the weapons, and pretend to be harmless. It usually worked. The aliens thought humans were weak and broken, scattered across the rim like dust in the wind. They were wrong about that. The Zephyrian ships closed in, their sleek hulls gleaming silver in the light of the nearby star. Jake had seen ships like these before, back when Earth was still part of the Galactic Federation. Back when humans thought they belonged among the stars with the other races, the lead ship hailed them. The alien face that appeared on the screen had 4 eyes and skin like blue leather. Commander Thekvar, if Jake remembered correctly. They had met before, though the Zephyrian probably didn't remember one human face among thousands. Human vessel, you are operating in restricted space, the alien said in perfect English. State your business here, Jake forced a smile. Just mining, Commander. Looking for rare metals in the asteroid field. We have proper permits. The Zephyrian's eyes narrowed. All 4 of them. Show me these permits. Jake nodded to Danny, who transmitted the forged documents. They were good forgeries, made by experts on the human colony at Ashfall. The Zephyrians studied them for long minutes while Jake's crew waited in tense silence. These appear to be in order, Thekvar finally said, but be warned, human. Do not stray beyond the marked boundaries. The Federation has little patience for your kind these days. The ships moved away, disappearing into the black. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Another close call, another day survived. This was life for humans now, always. Looking over their shoulders, always ready to run, it hadn't always been this way. 50 years ago, humans had been welcomed into the Galactic Federation with open arms. Earth's first contact with alien life had been peaceful, even friendly. The Velkari had shared their knowledge of faster-than-light travel. The Zephyrians had offered trade agreements. Other races had opened their worlds to human visitors. For 20 years, it seemed like humanity had found its place among the stars. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers. Human traders carried goods between distant worlds. Human explorers mapped new star systems and discovered wonders beyond imagination. But then things began to change. It started small. Complaints about human unpredictability. Concerns about human technological advancement. Whispers that humans learned too fast, adapted too quickly, asked too many questions. What had once been seen as curiosity and innovation now seemed threatening to the established order. The breaking point came when a human research team, led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, made a breakthrough in quantum physics that revolutionized starship design. Their new engines were faster and more efficient than anything the Federation had ever seen. Instead of celebration, there was fear. The aliens called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Jake remembered watching the broadcast, seeing Admiral Lisa Carter stand before the assembled representatives to defend humanity's right to exist among the stars. She had been eloquent and passionate, but it wasn't enough. The verdict was unanimous. Humanity was declared a destabilizing influence on galactic civilization. They were given 72 hours to evacuate all Federation space. Just like that, 6 billion humans became refugees. The evacuation had been chaos. Not every human had made it off the Federation worlds in time. Families were separated, friends were lost. Entire communities were scattered to the void. But humans were nothing if not adaptable. They found ways to survive, some like Commander. Ryan Brooks established colonies on dead worlds in the Outer Rim. Others, like Jake, took to the space lanes as traders and miners. A few disappeared entirely, vanishing into the unknown regions beyond the galaxy's edge. But they all remembered. They all carried the hurt of rejection, the anger of exile. The years had changed them. Life in the void was hard, unforgiving. It made people stronger, more resourceful. Human technology had advanced by leaps and bounds, driven by necessity. When you couldn't buy what you needed, you learned to build it yourself. When standard equipment failed in the harsh conditions of the Rim, you invented something better. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had continued her research in hidden laboratories scattered throughout human space. Her quantum drives now powered most human ships, giving them speed and range that surpassed Federation technology. Other human scientists had made similar breakthroughs in weapons, shields, and life support systems. The aliens thought they had neutered humanity by cutting them off from galactic civilization. Instead, they had forced humans to become self-reliant in ways they never could have imagined. Jake's thoughts were interrupted by a new signal on the com. This one was human, transmitted on frequencies only they used. The message was brief but urgent. A young pilot named Alex Turner had found something on a dead moon in the Kepler system. Something that might change everything. Jake looked at the coordinates, then at his crew. They were good people, loyal and brave. They had followed him through 50 years of exile without complaint. Now they might have a chance to do something more than just survive. "Danny, plot a course for Kepler 442c, he said. "Best speed." That's deep in the void, Captain, Danny replied. "Why would anyone go there?" Jake smiled, and for the first time in years, it was genuine. "Because sometimes the best treasures are hidden in the most unlikely places, and we humans have always been good at finding what others have lost." The new frontier turned toward the distant star, her engines humming with quiet power. Behind them lay 50 years of exile and hardship. Ahead lay the unknown, and perhaps the beginning of something that would shake the galaxy to its foundations. The aliens had banished. Humanity, thinking they were removing a threat, they were about to discover their mistake. Alex Turner had seen many dead worlds in his 25 years as a pilot, but Kepler 442c was different. The small moon orbited a gas giant that had long since cooled to frozen silence. No atmosphere, no life, nothing but rock and metal under. A black sky filled with distant stars. Yet something had called him here, a signal so faint that most sensors would have missed it entirely. His small scout ship touched down near a crater that looked no different from 1,000 others. Alex suited up and stepped onto the lifeless surface, his boots crunching on ancient dust that hadn't been disturbed for millions of years. The signal was stronger now, pulling him toward a ridge of broken stone near the crater's edge. What he found changed everything. Half buried in the rock was a structure unlike anything in known space. It wasn't built, it was grown, its surface flowing like liquid metal frozen in time. Strange symbols covered its walls, symbols that seemed to shift and change when Alex wasn't looking directly at them. The structure hummed with barely contained energy, waiting for something. Alex approached carefully. His suit's sensors were going crazy, detecting energy patterns they couldn't identify. As he drew closer, the symbols began to glow with soft blue light. They were responding to his presence, recognizing something in him that even he didn't understand. He reached out and touched the nearest symbol. The world exploded into light and knowledge. Information flooded into Alex's mind faster than thought, showing him visions of a galaxy that existed long before any current civilization. He saw a race of beings unlike any he had ever imagined, tall and graceful, with technology that made Federation science look like stone tools. They called themselves the Ancients, and they had ruled the stars when the galaxy was young, but they hadn't been alone. The visions showed Alex their enemy, creatures of pure energy that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where worlds once thrived. The ancients called them the Devourers, and they were winning the war. In desperation, the ancients had made a final gambit. They seeded the galaxy with hidden vaults containing their most advanced knowledge and weapons, designed to activate only when the right species found them. Then they had done something incredible and terrible. They had reached across millions of years to plant genetic markers in a young species on a small blue world, ensuring that when the time came, someone would be able to use what they had left behind. That species was humanity. The download lasted only seconds but felt like hours. When it ended, Alex stumbled backward, his mind reeling from what he had learned. The structure's glow faded, but he could feel it wasn't finished with him. It was waiting, patient as stone, for others to come. Alex ran back to his ship and sent an emergency message on every human frequency he could reach. Within hours, ships began arriving from across the sector. The New Frontier was among the first, Captain Jake Morrison bringing his experienced crew to investigate. Behind them came others, miners and traders and explorers, all drawn by Alex's incredible story. Marine Colonel Sam Davis arrived on the heavy transport Guardian, his face grim as he studied the alien structure. Davis was old-school military, one of the officers who had served in the Federation forces before the exile. He didn't trust alien technology, but he understood its potential. "Show me," he said simply. Alex led him to the structure and explained what had happened. Davis listened without comment, then placed his own gloved hand on the symbols. The same blue light erupted, and Davis received his own download of ancient knowledge. When it was over, he looked like a man who had seen the face of God. "Get me Dr. Mitchell," he said into his now. Dr. Karen Mitchell arrived 3 days later on the research vessel Discovery, her team of scientists eager to study the find. Mitchell was brilliant, one of the humans who had advanced their technology during the long exile. She approached the ancient structure with the careful reverence of someone who understood they were looking at something beyond price. Her scans revealed incredible truths. The structure wasn't just a data storage device, it was a beacon designed to call others of its kind when activated. Across the galaxy, similar vaults were awakening, responding to the genetic signatures of the humans who had found them. "There are hundreds of them," Mitchell told the assembled crowd of humans who had gathered on the dead moon. "Maybe thousands, all waiting for us to find them." Captain Monica Stone, commander of the supply ship Wanderer, raised the question everyone was thinking. "What's in them?" Mitchell's answer sent shockwaves through the crowd. "Weapons that can crack planets. Ships that travel between dimensions. Technology that makes our best equipment look like children's toys." The ancients weren't just advanced, they were gods among the stars, but the knowledge came with a warning. The ancient data made it clear that humanity's genetic markers weren't an accident. They had been placed there for a purpose, as part of a long plan to create guardians who could stand against the Devourers if they ever returned. The ancients had seen something in early humanity that convinced them we were the right choice for this burden. Colonel Davis organized security around the site while Mitchell's team worked to understand the full scope of their discovery. More ships arrived daily, bringing humans from every corner of exile space. Word spread through the networks that kept scattered humanity connected, carried by traders and messengers to the farthest colonies. Not all the news was good. Communications specialist Betty Clark intercepted Federation signals that showed the aliens were becoming suspicious of increased human activity in the Outer Rim. Zephyrian intelligence operative Vexcar had filed reports about unusual energy readings from dead systems. Energy readings that matched no known technology. "They're watching us," Clark warned during one of the daily briefings. "If they figure out what we found here, they'll come in force." Jake Morrison stood before the assembled humans, looking out at faces that had known nothing but hardship for 50 years. These people had been cast out, labeled as dangerous, forced to scrape out a living in the galaxy's forgotten corners. Now they had been handed the keys to power beyond imagining. "The question is," he said quietly, "what do we do with it?" Some wanted to hide, to study the ancient technology in secret until they understood it completely. Others argued for immediate action, for using their new knowledge to strike back at the Federation that had wronged them. The debate raged for hours, voices raised in anger and fear and hope. It was Alex Turner who provided the answer. Standing near the ancient structure that had started it all, he looked up at the stars that had once seemed so hostile. They made U.S. outcasts because they were afraid of what we might become, he said. Maybe it's time we showed them they were right to be afraid. The decision was made. Humanity would claim its inheritance from the ancients, but they would do it carefully, quietly, until they were strong enough to face whatever came next. The galaxy had banished them, but exile had made them stronger. Now they had the tools to prove it. The ancient structure pulsed with soft light as if it approved of their choice. Across the galaxy, other vaults waited in the darkness, ready to reveal their secrets to the species that had been chosen to inherit the stars. The attack came without warning at dawn on Ashfall Colony. Commander Ryan Brooks was drinking his morning coffee when the first plasma beams lit up the sky like angry red lightning. The Zephyrian fleet had found them, 6 warships dropping out of hyperspace with weapons already charging. "All civilians to the shelters!" Brooks shouted into his cum as explosions rocked the settlement. "Military personnel to defensive positions." This is not a drill, but they all knew the truth. Ashfall had no real defenses against a full battle fleet. The colony's weapons were meant for mining and basic security, not warfare against advanced alien technology. 3,000 humans lived on this dead rock, and now they were about to die because the Federation had decided to finish what they started 50 years ago. Admiral Velther commanded the Zephyrian attack from his flagship destroyer of worlds. He had been hunting humans for months, following reports of unusual activity in the Outer Rim. His orders were simple and brutal: eliminate every human settlement they could find. The Federation Council had finally decided that exile wasn't enough. Humanity needed to be wiped out completely. The orbital bombardment lasted 6 hours. Buildings that had taken years to construct vanished in seconds under concentrated plasma fire. The mining equipment that represented decades of human ingenuity became twisted metal and slag. Brooks managed to evacuate most of the civilians through underground tunnels, but the colony itself was lost. As the survivors fled into the wasteland beyond the settlement, Brooks received urgent messages from other human outposts. The attacks were happening everywhere. The mining station at Beta Crucis was gone. The research facility on Titan 7 had been destroyed. The trading post at Junction 5 was nothing but burning wreckage. The Federation had declared total war on humanity, and they were losing badly. Captain Jake Morrison received the distress calls while his ship was still 3 days out from Ashfall. The New Frontier wasn't a warship, but Morrison couldn't stand by while his people were slaughtered. He pushed his engines beyond safe limits, racing through space as more colonies fell to Federation attacks. When he finally reached Ashfall, the planet was dark. No lights, no communications, nothing but the cold glow of cooling wreckage where the settlement had been. Morrison's heart sank as he scanned for survivors. Then his sensors picked up movement in the southern highlands, a group of humans making their way across the barren landscape. The rescue took 3 trips. Morrison's ship wasn't designed to carry passengers, but they made room somehow. Brooks was among the last to board, his face grim as he watched his former home disappear behind them. "How many?" Morrison asked. 2,400 made. "It out," Brooks replied. "The rest?" He didn't need to finish. Similar scenes played out across human space as the survivors of destroyed colonies were picked up by passing ships. The trading vessel Starlight rescued 300 people from the wreckage of Mining Station 7, the transport. Hope pulled survivors from the ruins of New Denver Colony. But for every person saved, 2 more were lost to Federation weapons. Dr. Elena Rodriguez received word of the attacks while working in her hidden laboratory in the Vega system. The brilliant scientist had spent years developing new technologies for humanity's scattered fleets, but now her work took on desperate urgency. She activated emergency protocols, sending coded messages to every human research facility she could reach. "They want to wipe us out?" she told her assistant, Engineer Tony Walsh. "Then we'll show them what humans can do when their backs are against the wall." Rodriguez had been studying fragments of ancient technology recovered from the vault at Kepler 442c. The materials defied conventional physics, seeming to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Her team had made breakthrough after breakthrough, but they hadn't been ready to test their most ambitious projects. Now they had no choice. The first test occurred in an asteroid field near the edge of the Vega system. Rodriguez had discovered that ancient technology could be activated by human neural patterns, allowing their ships to interface directly with weapons and defenses that operated on principles beyond Federation understanding. When 3 Zephyrian hunter ships tracked the new frontier to the asteroid field, they found more than they bargained for. Morrison's mining vessel should have been easy prey for military craft. Instead, the asteroids themselves came alive. Hidden ancient defense systems that had slept for millions of years awakened at Morrison's touch, recognizing the genetic markers in his DNA. Weapons that turned matter into pure energy lanced out from the rocks, turning the Zephyrian ships into clouds of glowing particles in seconds. The victory was small, but significant. For the first time since the attacks began, humans had fought back and won. More importantly, they had done it using technology the Federation couldn't understand or counter. Word of the battle spread through the human networks faster than light. Captain Monica Stone, evacuating survivors from the destroyed colony at Proxima Base, felt hope flicker in her chest for the first time in months. Colonel Sam Davis, organizing military resistance from his mobile command post, began making new plans, but the Federation response was swift and brutal. When Admiral Velther learned that an entire hunter squadron had been destroyed, he ordered attacks on any world suspected of harboring humans. Several neutral colonies that had traded with human merchants were bombed into rubble. The message was clear: anyone who helped humanity would share their fate. The atrocity backfired. Species that had remained neutral in the conflict began secretly supporting human resistance efforts. The Altarian Republic, longtime rivals of the Zephyrians, started passing intelligence about Federation fleet movements. The independent worlds of the Outer Spiral began sheltering human refugees. Former Federation diplomat Helen Clark, now working with the human underground, received reports from across the galaxy. The Federation's heavy-handed tactics were creating enemies everywhere, but it was still a war humanity couldn't win through conventional means. That changed when Tony Walsh made a discovery that would alter the balance of power forever. While studying ancient technology in Rodriguez's laboratory, he found that the defense systems weren't isolated. They were part of a vast network that stretched across the entire outer rim, connected by quantum entanglement that allowed instant communication across impossible distances. "It's not just weapons," Walsh explained to the assembled human leaders during an emergency conference. "It's an entire infrastructure. The ancients turned the whole outer rim into a fortress, and we're the only ones who can activate it." The implications were staggering. Humanity didn't just have access to powerful weapons. They had inherited a defensive network that could make their territory impregnable, but using it would reveal the full extent of their capabilities to the Federation, ending any hope of hiding until they were stronger. The debate raged for hours among the scattered human leadership. Some argued for caution, for building their strength in secret. Others demanded immediate action to save the colonies still under attack. It was Alex Turner who broke the deadlock. The young pilot who had started it all spoke with quiet conviction that carried more weight than angry shouts. "They're killing us now," he said. "Tomorrow they'll kill more of us. We can hide and watch our people die, or we can fight back with everything we have. The ancients didn't give us this technology to collect dust in storage vaults." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would activate the ancient defense network and make their stand in the outer rim. If the Federation wanted to finish their genocide, they would have to face weapons that had once held back the devourers of worlds. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you tried to destroy a species chosen by gods. 2 years had passed since the Federation began their extermination campaign, and the galaxy was no longer the same. What started as systematic genocide had become a war that shook the foundations of known space. Humanity had not only survived, the onslaught but had begun to thrive in ways that terrified their enemies. Admiral Kevin Murphy stood on the bridge of his flagship Retribution, watching the tactical display that showed Federation fleet movements across 3 sectors. Murphy had been Lisa Carter's aide during the dark days of exile, a young officer who believed diplomacy could solve any problem. Those beliefs had died with Carter when Federation forces destroyed the hospital ship Mercy, killing the woman who had once represented humanity's hope for peace. Now Murphy commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled, 60 ships equipped with ancient technology that made them more dangerous than anything the Federation had ever faced. The Retribution itself was a marvel of human engineering combined with ancient science, a vessel that could phase between dimensions and strike targets across impossible distances. "Admiral, we're receiving the signal from Captain Stone," reported Communications Officer Larry Adams. "The convoy is exactly where our sources said it would be," Murphy nodded. Intelligence had become humanity's greatest weapon after technology. The Federation's brutal tactics had turned dozens of species against them, creating a network of informants that fed crucial information to human commanders. What the aliens had intended as a final solution had instead forged the very alliances that would destroy them. The Battle of Proxima Gate would be remembered as the moment the tide truly turned. Captain Monica Stone led 12 human ships against a Zephyrian supply convoy carrying weapons and reinforcements to the front lines. The Federation vessels outnumbered the humans 3-1 and carried heavier armament. But numbers meant nothing when your enemy could rewrite the laws of physics. Stone's ships activated their ancient phase systems simultaneously, becoming translucent ghosts that passed through enemy fire without taking damage. The Zephyrian commander, Admiral Kethver, watched in horror as his plasma beams struck empty space while human vessels materialized inside his formation like deadly phantoms. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, 36 Federation ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas, while the human fleet remained untouched. Stone's tactical report was brief and professional, but those who read it understood they had witnessed something unprecedented in the history of warfare. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On worlds throughout Federation space, oppressed species whispered excitedly about the humans who could appear and disappear at will, who fought with weapons that ignored shields and armor. Fear began to replace confidence in the corridors of power on Centauri. Prime Dr. Karen Mitchell's research teams had made breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding ancient technology, working from hidden laboratories scattered across human space. They had unlocked secrets that transformed dead worlds into thriving colonies in mere months. Ancient terraforming systems could reshape entire planets, creating breathable atmospheres and fertile soil from barren rock. The colony at New Terra exemplified this transformation. Built on a lifeless world at the edge of human space, it had become a fortress paradise where 50,000 humans lived in comfort and security. Engineer Tony Walsh had supervised the construction of defensive systems that made the planet virtually impregnable, while Dr. Elena Rodriguez's manufacturing facilities produced weapons and ships with capabilities that exceeded anything in known space. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. The scattered refugees who had fled Federation space 50 years ago had evolved into something harder and more focused. The children born in exile had grown up knowing they were unwanted, that their very existence was considered a threat by the established powers of the galaxy. This knowledge had forged them into warriors who fought with the desperate fury of the condemned. Lieutenant Commander Nancy Wood exemplified this new generation of humans. Born on a mining station in the Outer Rim, she had never seen Earth or known the comfortable life of Federation membership. To her, the aliens were not former allies who had betrayed humanity, they were simply enemies to be defeated. Her intelligence network stretched across dozens of worlds, providing information that allowed human forces to strike where the Federation was weakest. Colonel Sam Davis had become something approaching a legend among both human and alien forces. His raids deep into Federation territory freed human prisoners from detention camps, and struck fear into enemy commanders who never knew where he would appear next. Davis led from the front, using ancient biotechnology that enhanced human reflexes and strength to superhuman levels. The raid on detention Facility 7 became the stuff of nightmares for Federation personnel. Davis and his Marines had infiltrated the heavily guarded complex where human prisoners were subjected to medical experiments and forced labor. What they found there ended any remaining hope for reconciliation between the species. The facility held 3,000 human prisoners, including children who had been separated from their families during the initial attacks. The medical logs revealed experiments designed to understand human genetic structure, with particular focus on the markers that allowed them to use ancient technology. Hundreds had died under the knives of Federation scientists who saw them as nothing more than laboratory specimens. Davis's response was swift and merciless. His enhanced Marines moved through the facility like avenging angels, their ancient enhanced reflexes allowing them to dodge enemy fire while returning shots with deadly precision. The guards who had tormented human prisoners for months found themselves facing opponents who moved faster than thought and struck with inhuman strength. The rescue was complete, but the psychological impact extended far beyond the freed prisoners. Recordings of the facility's horrors were broadcast across human space, galvanizing support for total war against the Federation. Any remaining voices calling for moderation were silenced by the evidence of what their enemies were capable of. Federation's response was predictable and counterproductive. Faced with mounting losses and growing rebellion among member species, they increased the brutality of their tactics. Entire worlds suspected of collaborating with humans were subjected to orbital bombardment. The independent colony at Arcturus 7 was sterilized from space, simply because they had traded with human merchants. These atrocities only drove more species into the human camp. The Tau Ceti Alliance formally declared war on the Federation and began providing bases for human operations. The mining guilds of the asteroid belt started supplying raw materials for human shipyards. Even some Federation member worlds began secretly passing information to human agents. Admiral Murphy reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy, watching as the Federation's support crumbled under the weight of their own actions. Fear had made them desperate, and desperation had made them sloppy. They were losing the war not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of the species they claimed to protect. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Alex Turner, now commanding his own squadron of scout ships, discovered something that would end the war decisively. Deep in an unexplored nebula, he found an ancient facility unlike any they had encountered before. This wasn't just a weapons vault or terraforming station, it was a command center that controlled every ancient installation in the galaxy. "It's all connected," Turner reported to Murphy during an encrypted transmission. "Every vault, every defense system, every piece of ancient technology responds to this place, and it's all waiting for us to claim it." Murphy stared at the data streaming across his screens, understanding the implications immediately. Humanity hadn't just inherited weapons. From the ancients, they had inherited godhood itself. The power to reshape reality, to control matter and energy on a galactic scale, all of it waiting for the species that had been chosen to carry the torch of civilization. The Federation had banished humanity because they were afraid of human potential. Soon they would discover that their worst fears had been inadequate to the reality of what humans could become when pushed beyond all limits. 5 years after Alex Turner first touched an ancient artifact on a dead moon, the galaxy trembled before human power. The scattered refugees who had once begged for scraps at the edge of space now commanded fleets that could reshape reality itself. The final campaign was about to begin, and with it the end of an age. Admiral Kevin Murphy stood before the holographic display in his command center, studying the 3 remaining Federation strongholds that still resisted human dominance. The Valkyrie homeworld with its ancient cities and proud traditions. The Zephyrian military complex at Rigel 7 where their finest warriors made their last stand. and Centauri Prime, the Federation capital where terrified politicians still believed they could negotiate their way out of the reckoning that was coming. "All fleet commanders report ready," announced Communications Officer Larry Adams. "The simultaneous strikes can begin on your order, Admiral." Murphy nodded slowly. The man who had once served as a diplomatic aide now wielded power that would have been unimaginable to the gods of ancient Earth. With a single word, he could order the destruction of civilizations that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. The weight of that responsibility should have crushed him, but 50 years of exile and loss had forged him into something harder than diamond. "Begin the final offensive," he said quietly. "May history judge us more kindly than we judge ourselves." Captain Jake Morrison had drawn the assignment at the Valkyrie homeworld, leading a task force of 20 ships against the species that had first welcomed humanity to the stars. The irony wasn't lost on him. These were the same aliens who had shared faster-than-light technology with Earth's first explorers, who had seemed so wise and benevolent in those hopeful early days, but the Valkyrie had also voted for humanity's exile, and their fleets had participated in the genocide that followed. Whatever debt humanity might have owed them for past kindness had been paid in full with human blood. The Valkyrie defense fleet was impressive. Nearly 200 ships arranged in perfect formations around their jewel of a homeworld. Their commanders had studied every human battle, analyzed every tactical innovation, prepared countermeasures for every known weapon system. They were confident in their preparations and proud of their ancient warrior traditions. They had no answer for what Morrison brought against them. The ancient temporal manipulation systems had been the most difficult technology for human scientists to understand, requiring a level of mathematical sophistication that pushed even their enhanced intellects to the limit. But Dr. Elena Rodriguez's research teams had finally cracked the secrets of time itself, creating weapons that could trap entire fleets in loops of causality. Morrison's flagship activated the temporal field as the Valkyrie ships moved to intercept. Reality twisted around the enemy formation, and suddenly they were caught in an endless moment of their own defeat. The same plasma shots fired again and again, the same evasive maneuvers repeated endlessly, the same death screams echoing across communication channels that carried nothing but despair. The psychological impact was devastating. Valkyrie commanders found themselves reliving their destruction over and over, unable to break free from a prison made of time itself. Some went insane from the repetition. Others surrendered rather than face eternity trapped in their final moments. When Morrison finally released the temporal field, the Valkyrie fleet hung motionless in space, their crews broken by an experience that had lasted both forever and an instant. The homeworld's surrender followed within hours, its proud leaders finally understanding that humanity had moved beyond conventional warfare into realms that defied comprehension. At Rigel 7, Colonel Sam Davis faced a different kind of challenge. The Zephyrians had turned their military complex into a fortress that could withstand the bombardment of entire fleets. Deep underground bunkers held their finest soldiers, warriors who had trained their entire lives for ground combat against any conceivable enemy. They hadn't trained for what they got. Davis's Marines had been enhanced with ancient biotechnology that pushed human capabilities into superhuman realms. They moved with impossible speed, their reflexes operating faster than neural impulses should allow. Their strength could crush metal with bare hands, their endurance allowing them to fight for days without rest. But it wasn't just physical enhancement that made them unstoppable. The ancient technology had unlocked dormant areas of the human brain, granting abilities that bordered on telepathy. Davis's troops could anticipate enemy movements, coordinate without communication, and strike with precision that seemed almost supernatural. The battle for Rigel 7 became a demonstration of what humanity had become during their long exile. Where once they had been clever apes with pretensions to civilization, they were now something approaching the ancients who had chosen them. The Zephyrian defenders, for all their skill and courage, were fighting the next stage of galactic evolution. The complex fell in 6 hours. When the shooting stopped, the survivors emerged to find their fortress conquered by humans who moved like gods of war. beautiful and terrible in their enhanced perfection, but the most shocking victory came at Centauri Prime, where Dr. Elena Rodriguez demonstrated the ultimate expression of ancient science. The Federation capital was defended by massive energy shields and orbital weapons platforms. Protected by technology accumulated over millennia of galactic dominance, Rodriguez didn't attack the defenses. She simply moved the entire planet. The reality manipulation systems were the crown jewel of ancient technology, devices that could alter the fundamental structure of space and time. Rodriguez had spent years learning to interface with them, her enhanced human consciousness serving as a bridge between organic thought and cosmic forces. With careful precision, she relocated Centauri Prime to another star system, then returned it to its original position unharmed. The message was clear and terrifying. Humanity could now reshape reality on a planetary scale. No defense could stand against enemies. Who could rewrite the laws of physics at will? The Federation's surrender came immediately. President Sharon Adams, elected as the first leader of the Human Galactic Authority, received the formal capitulation from representatives of every remaining alien government. The ceremony took place on Earth, humanity's birth world restored to pristine beauty through ancient terraforming technology. Adams stood before the assembled alien delegates, looking out at faces that showed fear, resignation, and in some cases, genuine respect. These were the same species that had cast humanity into exile, claiming they were too dangerous for civilized space. Now those fears had proven prophetic in ways none of them could have imagined. "We did not choose this path," Adams said, her voice carrying across the restored gardens of Earth. "You forced it upon us when you decided we had no right to exist among the stars. But we are not monsters, despite what necessity has made us become." The new Galactic Charter established human supremacy while guaranteeing basic rights to all species willing to accept the new order. It was more generous than the aliens had any right to expect, given the genocide they had attempted. But humanity remembered what it was like to be powerless, and they chose mercy over vengeance. Alex Turner, now Admiral Turner of the Human Space Force, walked through the ceremony grounds as representatives signed the documents that would reshape galactic civilization. The young pilot who had found the first ancient vault was now one of the most powerful humans alive, his neural enhancements allowing him to interface directly with technologies that could destroy solar systems. He paused before a memorial wall that listed the names of every human who had died during the Federation's genocidal campaign. Millions of names, including Admiral Lisa Carter and thousands of others who had died believing in a future where humans and aliens could coexist peacefully. That future had arrived, but not in the way anyone had expected. Humanity had not found acceptance among the stars. They had claimed dominion over them. The species that had been cast out for being too dangerous had proven their critics absolutely right. Turner looked up at the night sky, where human ships patrolled space routes. That had once been forbidden to them. The galaxy that had banished humanity for fear of what they might become had created the very monsters they had dreaded. Exile had not broken the human spirit, it had forged it into something that could inherit the legacy of gods. The ancients had chosen well. Their weapons and knowledge were now in the hands of a species that had learned the hard way that survival required strength, that peace could only be maintained through the threat of overwhelming force. Humanity would guard the galaxy against threats from beyond, just as their benefactors had intended, but they would do it as conquerors, not as the humble explorers they had once been. The galaxy had taught them that kindness was weakness, that mercy was a luxury they could not afford. In trying to destroy humanity, the Federation had created something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The exiles had returned as emperors, and the stars themselves bowed before human will.